You might hear his voice talking about Marc Marquez picking up his 8th world title and his over-exuberant, I wouldn't say over-exuberant, but exciteful voice on the last lap battles with Rind, Dovizioso, Marquez. I'm happy to say we're joined by MotoGP World Feed commentator Steve Day. Steve, I'm so glad we've managed to actually catch you on a day where you're not jet hopping around the world. How have you been?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, wow, you're lucky actually in a way, because my wife can't catch me on many of those dates. But no, I'm really good, thank you. Yeah, just got back from Malaysia, and it's been a long trip, a couple of weeks away. Well, almost a month away. But yeah, all good. Can't complain. Got over most of the jet lag now, so ready for the final round.
Yeah, so maybe not wandering around the house at 4 o'clock in the morning trying to search food under the fridge or anything.
Yeah, going on at the moment, yes. Can't tell that we've had a chat before this interview started. No, not just that. Also, I've got an 8-month-old boy at the moment, so I'm being kept up at all hours either way. So it's been getting over jet lag, searching for food in the house, changing nappies, baby pooing in the bath. But it's all good. It's Hollywood.
I'm guessing your wife is really glad to have you back home so you can look after your son for a while she can go off and do other things.
Oh my God. I'm not listening to this. No, it's a weird one because, going away can be really, really hard. Obviously you miss home, but then you come home and, my wife's not interested I can tell you right now, she's not interested in bikes at all. So it's kind of like, here's your son, you're a dad now, so you're not a MotoGP player, get used to it. So that's the way it is. So no, it's all good. Yeah, everyone's. It's hard. I'm not the only one. I mean, there's so many people in the paddock that have families. So the 3-4 weeks away can be quite hard. But hey, I mean, we're commentating on motorbikes, so I'm not going to sit here and start complaining, Liam.
Yeah, it's not a bad job to have. But when you're not changing nappies and looking after your son and being back home, just let us in on a little insight of what it's like to commentate on the biggest and fastest two-wheeled motorsport in the entire world.
It is absolutely unbelievable. It's kind of weird for me because I spent all of my childhood, like everyone else, like all of the guys you speak to, like yourselves, sitting on a couch at home, watching it, wishing I was a part of it one day. I mean, I had a chance to race once. That's a story for another day. But, being a kid watching it on TV to now being a world feed commentator is a privilege. It's such a cool job. You have to pinch yourself every now and again just to kind of remind yourself that you're doing it. But it's just so cool. I mean, when you get the chance to commentate on or do a job involving something that you adore, I can't even put into words how cool it is. So yeah, I don't take it for granted. You never know what's going to happen, but at the moment, I'm really enjoying it, and it's just great. It's great.
Can imagine it's great to commentate on some of the best riders that have ever lived. Now, you did mention that you raced once, and I looked you up, and you've raced against Casey Stoner and Cal Crutchlow in the past, Chaz Davies as well. Now, you raced for quite a while. What made you want to give up racing and then take the path to become a commentator?
Because I wasn't fast enough. If you actually think about all of those guys, when I first started racing against Cal, they were all boys. So Cal, me, Casey, Tom Sykes, Tommy Hill, Chaz, we were all young kids when we first started in the super teens, as some of the kids do these days. And so we all started up doing that sort of stuff. And yeah, it was just a bad time to start motorbike racing, I guess. So I was nowhere near fast enough to stick with those guys. We tried a little bit in British Championship. We went into Super Sport, but then we entered the realms of facing people like Stuart Easton, the late great Carl Harris, and it was just one of those things where I was hurting myself a lot, crashing because I wasn't talented enough. My dad was running out of money, and so I quickly worked out that maybe talking about it might be a bit easier. So that's the route we went.
And it's definitely not done you a bad job at all talking about it. Now, what was your thinking behind it? What moment did you go, you know what, I might just leave this behind and I want to start talking about it?
Well, there's quite a big gap between the two. I mean, for me, obviously, as any kid, when they start racing, their dream is to become, at my time, I suppose, you want to be a Valentino Rossi or you want to be a Carl Fogarty. So I raced for a while until the point where I just started getting hurt quite a lot. Dad's money was running out. In my case, I realised I'm not going to be a world champion. So how long do you keep going? So in the end, we just sort of dulled it down a bit, did some club racing, tried to get back to enjoying racing again. And we had some fun, but ultimately I was at an age where I was probably in my early 20s. There were other things that were interesting me more because I knew I wasn't going to make it. So in the end, I just thought, it's a dangerous sport. If you're not enjoying it out on circuit, you've got to basically just say, okay, maybe this is the time to stop. Not everyone does that, but I managed to see the light with that one. And so I thought, I'm going to stop. And I actually went into car sales for 2 or 3 years, way before I started commentating. And I was really, really lucky because I didn't do any, I was really intermediate as a kid, but I didn't do any degrees. I didn't do any anything like that. I've not got any diplomas. I've not got any certificates to give you at all. I was just really, really lucky because my dad was so passionate about racing. Before I started, he had a team. Then he went into start co-running Thundersport GB, which you guys, I'm sure, know. A lot of riders go into that and come out of that into British Championship. And it just so happened that one day their commentator was ill. And so I was like, I'll have a bash at that. So we did it. And it just, someone said it didn't sound too bad. And I just plagued the hell out of people. Afterwards, I plagued the hell out of Eurosport, so many different companies to try and get a job. And ultimately it worked out with Eurosport. And yeah, here I am in the moment. So I was just a massive pain in the arse, basically.
Well, I was going to come and ask you that question a little bit later on. What would be your advice to young upstarts that would that listen to you and want to be where you are one day? But I guess you've just answered that by saying you just pressured everyone.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I mean, you've got to be prepared for rejection because I sent I don't know how many emails. By the way, I'm really sorry if you can hear my baby screaming in the background. We wouldn't bother if you ran off and had to check on him. I'm not going to change your nappy live while I'm you, so no worries. No, I just plagued the hell out of everyone. It seems like a long time ago now, but I was really lucky. I got given the opportunity to do. Actually, funnily enough, the first thing I got given the chance to do with Eurosport was nothing to do with bikes. It was to do with winter sports. So I was asked to go and prove myself, basically, and was sent to Kazakhstan to commentate on the Asian Winter Games, which was an eye-opener. And yeah, so I kind of learned from there. That's a long time ago now. Yeah, I'd just say my advice to anyone would be to just not give up, to carry on, just keep on plaguing away. And there'll be some tough times because there'll be times where you just can't, you're not going to just walk into loads of money or something like that. It's not really that type of industry. So yeah, just keep going, keep plaguing, keep being a pain in the bum to everyone. And then eventually, hopefully, you'll get your chance. And when you get your chance, you've just got to put everything into it, like the research. I still do as much research now as I did before. I try to when I'm not changing nappies. And yeah, that's basically the be all and end all.
Persistence is the key, as they say. Now, how much research do you put in? Is it just all at the track you do your research, or is it like weeks in advance or going into it? Because I know you've got a wall filled with stats and things that have happened. Is it just overwhelming at times?
I would say that to begin with, you do more than you need to do. So you will go into every single detail of everything that you can imagine on every rider, on every circuit. And I used to take weeks and weeks and weeks of preparation. It's true to say that the more you do something, the more it's in your head. So you don't need to do as much, but I still try as much as possible to spend at least 2 days, let's say 9 till 5, or if you can. I mean, obviously it's a bit more difficult when we've got dad duties going on, so I'll split it up over a week or something. Of doing preparation, just updating statistics, updating notes, prep, just anything that you might need. I mean, most of the time with commentary notes, you need them when it's a red flag or something like that. If there's a delay, that's when you really need your information, because the rest of it, to be honest with you, is just never used. But yeah, that's kind of the format that I'd go for. I mean, obviously on planes we'll do as much as we can, and so yeah, the research is, there's paperwork everywhere. I've just got, I mean, even right now, the desk that I'm sitting on conducting this interview, I've got a pencil case. I'm like some sort of sad teenager, and I've got just notes everywhere and result sheets and highlighter pens going everywhere. So yeah. But then that's the way I look at it is, I want to, I enjoy what I do. I want to prep as much as possible. And that way, if ever it all comes crashing down, at least I can say I've done as much as I can.
And you've kept the pencil case. So what was the day like when it was announced that you were going to be the new world feed commentator for MotoGP?
It was bittersweet, I would say, for me, because when I initially got drafted into Dorna and MotoGP, Nick Harris was obviously still there, still doing it. And Nick was sort of playing with the idea of retiring. We're not sure whether he was going to retire or not. And so to ultimately know that I was going to replace Nick was sad in a way, because I knew that meant the end of Nick. And he's an incredibly popular, charismatic guy. He is still the voice of MotoGP to so many. So for me, it was humbling. It was exciting, but at the same time, it was quite daunting, because I had quite big shoes to fill. I still feel like I do. Every day is a learning day. So yeah, I don't think I ever let myself get too excited about anything. So I've never really been one of those people that would like, oh my God, let's go and open the champagne or something. It's kind of like, we've got a job to do and let's sort of make the most of it, sort of thing. So it was a good feeling, don't get me wrong. And there are times now where I'm like, oh wow, I'm doing what I'm doing. But I've never really kind of had that moment where I'm like, oh, let's get the party poppers out.
It's nice and reserved. It's probably the best way to be. Do you still just pinch yourself every so often and going, I can't believe I still get to do this?
Yeah, I do, definitely. I mean, especially when I think that way back when I used to watch the stuff on TV. I used to listen to commentators. I used to listen to great races. I used to watch people in the press conferences. To be in a press conference, actually hosting it, to be able to talk to these riders is such a privilege. I am well aware of that. It is unusual. There are still moments where I'm like, am I doing this? Is this what it's all about? So there are definitely moments where you do sort of think, oh my God, this is just an amazing job. And it's just incredible. I'm so lucky to be able to commentate on bike racing, to be able to sit there in front of the greats, to Marc Marquez, to Valentino Rossi, to be able to ask them questions. For me, the weirdest thing was my first press conference ever, and have like Marc Marquez looking at me, answering my questions, Valentino Rossi looking at me, answering my questions. It's bizarre. It is really, really bizarre. Now it's sort of become a little bit more normal, but I don't take it for granted, that's for sure.
Yeah, I can see by the smile on your face there's something that you still kind of can't believe, but you just go, this is amazing. Now, the probably thing is maybe not quite amazing is the increase in the calendar for next year. I know a lot of the riders and team personnel, just everyone is working there. It's great for the fans because we obviously get lots more racing on TV. But for yourself, having a young family and lots of other people having a young family MotoGP, what's that going to be like going from 19 rounds this year to 20 next year, and then there's possibly of it going up to 22 further down the line? Yeah,
I mean, it's quite a group. I mean, when we first came here, I came from World Super. I'd spent 3 years in World Superbike where there were 13 rounds. 13 rounds felt pretty good, to be honest. There was a nice break in between. I suppose you could argue maybe it felt like we were a little bit shortchanged in some ways. There could have been a few more, but MotoGP's kind of gone the other end of that. And there's no doubting that 19, 20 rounds, it's a lot of rounds. But, I'm not really worried about it. I mean, it depends on how they fall for me. I think more than the amount of rounds, it depends on where they are and how it forms in terms of how many are back-to-back. 3 back-to-back, I think, is like pretty hardcore. It's definitely kind of the top end of how many, not just for people that are working there, but for the riders as well. So if there were 4 back-to-back, that could be a problem. But I don't think that anyone's going to do that. So I'm like, bring it on. We still have to go out to do tests. We still go to Barcelona to produce test footage and broadcast that. There's going to be less tests. So you could argue maybe we're not going to be working anymore at the moment. As for 2021 and the prospect of 22 races, let's just see how it goes. I mean, I'm not anymore thinking about 2 or 3 years ahead, to be honest with you. I'm sort of getting older now, so I'm starting to become wiser of the fact that things change all the time, and it's just a case of dealing with it when you get there. And there are so many people in the paddock that say, oh my God, we can't do another year. We can't do another year like this. And they're all still there every single year. Because we love the sport. So for me, let's see how it goes. I mean, if all the races are close, no one's going to complain.
Yeah, and it's the way MotoGP is right now, it's super close. Now, what is it like? Is it difficult to balance professional life, working away for so long, and your family life, or is it something that you've become quite accustomed to now and it's quite easy?
For me, it's not a problem because, as I said before, my wife's not interested at all in motorcycle racing. And luckily for me, most of my friends are not either. They genuinely have no interest. Everyone snaps me back down to earth as soon as I come back. They're like, don't you come here with your puppets, blah, 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 blah. No, for me, it's really, really cool. I've got my own life at home. My dad, I suppose, is the only one back here who really loves bikes and has a passion. All my friends, my family, my wife, everyone, they've not got an interest in it. So for me, it's like, it takes a couple of days just to adjust. But it's just, I get back into it and we talk about football with my mates and things like that. And that's what we do. So it's not that hard. I quite like it because it's sort of almost like you kind of have 2 lives. You just, when you go into a MotoGP paddock, you're just like, oh, here we go. It's MotoGP life and then it's home life. So for me, it's not a big problem. It would be a bigger problem actually if everyone here loved bikes, because all I'd be doing is talking about bikes, which I suppose in some ways is not a bad thing, but you do need a bit of a break from time to time.
Yeah, and that's why the family life is so important. Now, there's a lot of talk about 2021, and you probably we were going to try and ask this question at some point, but you're in the thick of the action. You're there week in, week out. What have you heard, and what big changes could we expect for that season in terms of rider market?
I really love the fact that everyone's talking about 2021 and we're not even in 2020 yet, which is quite bizarre. I know the reason why. Obviously, we know that there aren't many changes going on for next year. Although I'm quite excited to see what Brad Binder does on a KTM. For 2021, I genuinely believe it's going to be the biggest shake-up MotoGP has ever seen. I think there could be some big changes. I don't think, personally, if you were to ask me, I don't think Marc Marquez is going to move from Honda yet. I think that at some point, maybe in his future, he will, but I don't think he will yet. As for the rest, I mean, it's anyone's game. I mean, I think there are a lot of really talented Moto2 riders that have definitely got the opportunity to move up. And because of what we've seen with Quartararo this year, I think you can be excited about any one of them, because nobody predicted, and nobody could have predicted, how good Quartararo is going to be. So it's going to be really fascinating. We're going to be monitoring it so closely, certainly the first few rounds, because the thing is, as you probably remember from a couple of years ago, deals were done by Qatar. So there could be deals done already sort of quite early into 2020, which is why you're asking me the question. I think there are going to be riders who will retire. I think there'll be new riders coming through. I think that there'll be current riders moving. It's going to be really exciting. I'm quite looking forward to the whole. There's a lot of people who don't like the whole talk and silly season, but I love it because it's something fascinating. It gives us something to talk about. Yeah,
especially with the off season coming up, it gives you more hype coming back to it. Now, you mentioned Quartararo. As you and myself, no one expected it. Do you believe this is what might trigger such a massive shake-up in 2021 as well? Because big teams might take a punt on a Moto2 rider, a bit like Tech 3 is taking with Iker Lecuona for next year. I think this is a big thing that's happening now, that more looking for more young kids instead of like the older guard.
Yeah, 100%. I think so. I'm not saying that it means that riders who are slightly older have no chance, because you're seeing in the current business that people like Dovi in their mid-30s can still do it. And, whilst it's not going well for Jorge at the moment, he showed last year on the Ducati he can still do it. Cal, he's just turned 34. He can still hit the podium. So the old guys ain't done yet. But it definitely, I think there will be teams, their heads will be turning because of what's happened with Fabio. I think there's a crop of young riders that are coming through that look potentially, I suppose, on paper better than Fabio did at that time. But the trouble is with Moto2 is you never really know how a rider's going to get on a MotoGP bike until they move. No one knew how Folger would do on a Tech 3 until he came on, and he actually did very, very well. I think there's an exciting breed coming through. I like the look of, obviously we know, having just sewn up the Moto2 World Championship, if Alex Marquez doesn't get a ride in the MotoGP grid in 2021, then there's something wrong. He'll be signed by someone. But then you've got the likes of Luca Marini, Augusto Fernandez, who will be coming through as well. Remy Gardner is a talented rider, although maybe the results aren't quite there at the moment. And Jorge Martin, for me, I'm convinced Jorge Martin's going to have a massive season next year. I think he will be atop of a lot of people's lists, so we'll see.
Certainly a massively exciting time in Moto2 and MotoGP for next season. What has been your, before we look at the future anymore over the next coming months, now come back to this year, what has been your standout moment? Could be on the track or just personally.
Oh dear. For me this year, the thing is, it's in a way what we're doing is marvelling over what Marc Marquez is doing. He's just been incredible. He's taken a step up to a level that no one else can even believe. It's been incredible. I suppose the standout moment, and we've had some great battles. Quartararo coming to the fore as maybe like the future rival to Mark has been something quite exciting. But until that happens, I don't want to kind of put that out there. For me, I kind of like to go with the heart. And for me, the standout moment of this year was Petrucci winning in Mugello, because there's a guy who has a rags to riches story. He's got his dream, and okay, it's not working out for him so much at the moment, but that win in Mugello was just magic. To commentate on that, to see a man realise his dream, on an Italian bike in Italy with his friends and family there, seeing the man cry. And we know Danilo well. He is just an utter gentleman. So for me, regardless of the fact that Mark is clearly the man of the year, I'm going to say that my standout moment was that, because genuinely there were moments in commentary where I thought, I'm going to lose it here. Because it's absolutely incredible and just such an emotional moment, because there is not a person in the paddock that doesn't love Danilo Petrucci.
Yeah, I luckily got to meet him in the paddock last year, and he was such a nice guy. I can imagine in the commentary box it was a bit like the Murray Walker moment with Damien Hill crossing the line with the lump in the throat. Was that what it was like for you?
Yeah, exactly. I remember being a kid watching that Murray Walker moment, and I was a massive Damien Hill fan in that time, Formula One fan, and it felt a bit like that, but it was just incredible to see the emotions, to be able to commentate on that as well. Was just an absolute privilege, and he is such a lovely guy. I know you could say that about so many people, but like you say, you've met him yourself. He's genuine. What you see is what you get. He is just salt of the earth. So absolutely awesome moment of the year for I think everyone.
It was indeed, and it's one that will go down in history as one of the all-time great achievements in a race. Now, Steve, before I let you get off and go to your family, obviously you conduct a lot of the press conferences. every single weekend, and I don't know if you'll be doing next Thursday, but I like the way you sort of incorporate the fan questions into the press conference and some social media. So we've got a couple here for you, if you don't mind answering, just 3 of them. So nothing too bad, if that's all right.
Okay.
Yeah,
Good.
So basically, just starting off with a nice, easy one. So basically, you've got to just answer the question and just say why you would take this rider to wherever. So starting off with, which rider would you go and have a beer with? And why?
Easy based on what I've just said to say Danilo Petrucci because he's such a lovely guy. But I mean, that would be maybe let's go for someone different. So who could we go for? I would say Jack Miller. Jack Miller is a great guy. Again, what you see is what you get. A real laugh. And having had the pleasure in the last 12 to 18 months of getting to know his family, I reckon they're all absolutely mental. And I reckon it would be a very, very good night. So that's what I say.
Yeah, I heard him after his podium at Australia. I said he can't really remember Monday, or was a rubbish Monday or something like that. So I'd probably have to agree with you in that one. Now, maybe something a bit spookier, just since we've had Halloween. Who would you spend a night in a haunted house with?
I would spend a night in a haunted house with Cal Crutchlow. And the reason I say that is because Cal looks like he's haunted himself and he's got like mean eyes, but deep down he's a big softie, and I reckon he'd actually scream with fear. So we'd actually be able to properly show you who the real Cal Crutchlow is, because deep down, if you get him on his soft underbelly, he's not as hard looking as he is. Really, he's a lovely guy, but I reckon he'd scream like a girl. I reckon he really would.
It'd be a good episode of Most Haunted. So just get some cameras up there and see what Cal Crutchlow's really like.
Exactly.
Yeah. And the final one before we let you go is, since Christmas, it's a festive season coming up. Who would you invite round to Christmas dinner? Can imagine it'd be quite a lot of them you would bring round.
Yeah, there'd be so many. I mean, Danilo, I'd have to invite round because he's so nice. I think he'd just be so welcoming to everyone. Brad Binder as well. He's a gentleman, so he'll get an invite. Who else? Albert Arenas. I'll invite good old Albert as well. He's got after some wins recently, so I'll invite Albert as well. But I mean that Christmas list could grow over the next couple of years. But no, I mean there's no one who I wouldn't invite, if that helps. So yeah, no, I'll go for Brad Binder, Albert Arenas, and Danilo. There's a mix for you.
That is a good mix, and that would be a Christmas party that would be very interesting indeed. Steve, thank you very much for your time, and I better let you get off to your family. Enjoy Valencia next week. I know it's been a long season, but it's been an enjoyable one, and it's going to be good to hear you back next weekend.
Liam, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much. Have a good show, guys.
Thanks very much. See you later, Steve.